Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between rolling hills and vast plains, there lived a man named Jabari. He was known far and wide for his sharp wit and cunning nature. Unlike many others in his village, Jabari was a man of considerable wealth. He owned 1,000 head of cattle, countless sheep, goats, and even a few camels, which were considered the ultimate sign of prosperity. Despite his riches, Jabari was not content to sit idle. He was always on the lookout for new opportunities and, sometimes, for new tricks to play on the unsuspecting. One dry season, when the grass near his village had withered under the relentless sun, Jabari decided to take his animals eastward in search of better grazing land. He knew the journey would be long and challenging, but he was confident that he could find a place where his animals could thrive. After days of traveling, Jabari found himself in a remote area far from his home. The land here was lush, and his animals eagerly grazed on the fresh green grass. However, there was one problem. Water was scarce. The streams that crisscrossed the area were shallow, and it was difficult to find enough water to quench the thirst of his large herd. One afternoon, as Jabari was scouting the area for a water source, he spotted a small plume of smoke rising in the distance. Curious, he decided to investigate. After walking for about 2 kilometers, he came across a modest homestead. The home was simple, built from mud and thatch, but it was well kept, with a small garden and a few chickens pecking at the ground. An old man was sitting outside on a low stool, enjoying the afternoon sun. Next to him was his wife, who was busy weaving a basket. Jabari approached them and greeted them warmly. The old man looked up and smiled, welcoming Jabari with the hospitality typical of the people of that region. They exchanged pleasantries, and soon Jabari was invited to sit with them and share a cup of tea. As they talked, Jabari explained his predicament. He told the old man about his journey and how he was struggling to find enough water for his animals. The old man listened attentively and then offered a solution. He had a well on his property, which he used to water his small garden and provide for his household. He suggested that Jabari could use a cooking pot to draw water from the well for his animals. Jabari was delighted. The old man's offer was generous, and it seemed like the perfect solution to his problem. The old man went into his house and returned with a large, sturdy cooking pot. "Take this," he said, handing it to Jabari. "You can use it to fetch water from the well. Just bring it back when you're done." Jabari thanked the old man profusely and promised to return the pot the next day. He hurried back to his camp, where his animals were waiting. Using the cooking pot, he fetched water from the well and satisfied the thirst of his herd. The animals, now refreshed, were able to graze happily. True to his word, Jabari returned the cooking pot the next day. The old man was pleased to see him and welcomed him back with a smile. This routine continued for several days. Each morning, Jabari would come to the old man's home, borrow the cooking pot, fetch water, and return the pot by evening. Over time, the old man and Jabari grew closer. They shared stories, laughed together, and became good friends. However, as the days passed, Jabari began to tire of the daily trek to the old man's home. The journey, though not long, was tiring, especially in the heat of the day. Jabari began to wonder if there was a way to avoid this daily chore. His clever mind started to work, and soon he came up with a plan. One day, after returning the cooking pot as usual, Jabari decided to put his plan into action. The next morning, he borrowed the pot again, but before returning it, he placed a smaller cooking pot inside it. The smaller pot was one he had brought from home, a simple pot that was of little value to him. He carried the pot back to the old man's house and handed it over. When the old man received the cooking pot, he noticed something unusual. It was heavier than usual, and when he looked inside, he found the smaller pot nestled within. Puzzled, he looked at Jabari and asked, "What is the meaning of this?" Jabari, with a straight face, replied, "My friend, something extraordinary has happened. Your cooking pot has given birth to a smaller pot." The old man was taken aback. He had never heard of such a thing, but he trusted Jabari, who had always been honest with him. The idea seemed absurd, but the old man was also amused by the thought. He laughed heartily and hugged Jabari, saying, "You are a good friend, Jabari. I never expected this. Thank you for bringing the new pot." Jabari smiled and left, pleased that his trick had worked. The old man accepted the smaller pot without question, and Jabari knew that this was just the beginning of his plan. A week later, Jabari returned to the old man's home to borrow the cooking pot again. As soon as the old man saw him coming, he ran out to greet him. "How are you, my good friend?" the old man asked, beaming with excitement. "I'm well," Jabari replied. "I came to borrow the cooking pot again." The old man eagerly went into his house and brought out the pot. As he handed it to Jabari, he said, "I hope it will bring another small one this time." Jabari laughed and nodded. "Yes, let's hope so." This time, after fetching water for his animals, Jabari did not return the cooking pot. Days turned into weeks, and the old man began to wonder why Jabari had not returned the pot as usual. 2 months later, unable to contain his curiosity any longer, the old man decided to visit Jabari and ask for his cooking pot back. The old man walked the 2 kilometers to Jabari's temporary home, where he saw Jabari sitting outside, tending to his animals. As he approached, he called out, "Where is my cooking pot, young man?" Jabari was startled. He had forgotten about the pot, and realized that the old man might see it if he entered the house. Thinking quickly, Jabari ran inside and hid the pot under a pile of blankets. When the old man entered, he found Jabari sitting on the floor, tears streaming down his face. "What's wrong, my friend?" the old man asked, concerned. Jabari looked up, his face filled with sorrow, and said, "It's dead." "What's dead?" the old man asked, now thoroughly confused. "The cooking pot," Jabari replied, wiping away a tear. "It died after suffering from a terrible illness." The old man was stunned. "The cooking pot died?" he repeated, hardly believing his ears. "Yes," Jabari said, his voice filled with regret. "I am so sorry, my friend. The pot that gave birth also had the misfortune of passing away." The old man stood in silence, trying to comprehend what Jabari was saying. Suddenly, the realization dawned on him. He now understood the trick that Jabari had played when he brought the smaller pot. The old man felt a wave of embarrassment wash over him. He had been foolish to believe that a cooking pot could give birth, and now he had lost his only pot because of his own gullibility. Feeling both angry and humiliated, the old man decided to seek justice. He made his way to the palace of the Sultan, who was known for his wisdom and fair judgment. The old man told the Sultan everything that had happened, from the day he first lent the pot to Jabari to the day he was told it had died. The Sultan listened carefully, his expression serious. He ordered his guards to bring Jabari to the palace so that he could hear both sides of the story. When Jabari arrived, the Sultan asked him to explain himself. Jabari, ever the clever one, calmly denied any wrongdoing. "Your Majesty," he began, "I did not steal the cooking pot. It is true that I borrowed it from my friend, and it is also true that it gave birth to a smaller pot, which I returned. However, what my friend did not expect was that the pot would suffer greatly during childbirth. Unfortunately, after the birth, It succumbed to its injuries and passed away. I had no control over this tragic event. The Sultan and his court were astonished by Jabari's explanation. The idea of a cooking pot giving birth and then dying was beyond belief. But Jabari's confidence and the way he told the story left them all speechless. After a long pause, the Sultan finally spoke. "Jabari, your story is indeed strange, but you have made a convincing case. If a cooking pot can give birth, then it must also be able to die. Therefore, I find you not guilty of stealing the pot." The old man was crestfallen. He had lost his cooking pot and had been outwitted by Jabari's cleverness. The Sultan, impressed by Jabari's cunning, released him and even praised his ingenuity. As Jabari left the palace, he couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. He had managed to keep the cooking pot and had avoided any punishment. The old man, on the other hand, returned home empty-handed, realizing that his trust had been misplaced. And that was the end of our story. For more story like this, please subscribe to our channel, share, like, and comment. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.